Wall Street sure as heck can't control the US stock market. You've probably heard that Palantir's been on one heck of a tear these past 2 years. I'm your new pal, cowboy. Palantir, a rare AI application layer company on the stock market, has seen its share price rise nearly tenfold in 2 years. This company is just incredible, constantly shattering expectations with its outstanding performance. Time and again, it delivers jaw-dropping results, surprising everyone and leaving a lasting impact. Today, Palantir is still the most valuable company on the stock market. There is no doubt about it. However, as the stock price has skyrocketed, doubts have surrounded the company. How can a data analytics company make so much money? Of all the companies that do analytics, why should you be able to do it? Is your moat really that deep? What many people may not know is that the company's growth isn't as impressive as you might think. It's only 30% to 40%. In the stock market, there are countless tech companies showing similar growth. It's impossible to keep track of them all. And as for this one, it's only just past 700 customers in total. Not even one of the largest SaaS companies. So if Palantir's products are so indispensable, why is revenue growth so mediocre? And why aren't many users using it? Questions like these came to a head this week. Palantir isn't just overvalued, it's the most overvalued company ever, according to The Economist. Campus Capital recently went public with its plan to short Palantir, saying it was too overvalued to sell. Palantir's share price fell by 20% in a week. So is Palantir seriously overvalued? Is there more to these suspicions than meets the eye? Is the post-crash Palantir an opportunity to add to positions or just the beginning of a crash? Ode Myrtle intends to take a different approach. I'll explain all the questions surrounding the company through the technical principles of Shenba Palantir. You'll find the answer to all of the company's problems. As far as I can tell, no one on the market has ever read the company that way. This was originally a video that I put on my Pro, and it was very well received. And it just so happened that this week there was a lot of controversy around Palantir, so I shared it with all of his viewers. If you really want to invest in this company with peace of mind, you have to watch the entire episode. You may know Palantir as a company that does data analysis for the military and corporations, but do you know exactly how it does that? If you're interested in this question, I highly recommend going to the Volunteer AI Pico conference, which is available on YouTube, and I've done some reading on my Pro. Here are a few quick examples from MITA June, such as the HR company Morrison, who used Pleater to screen candidates, resulting in a 129% increase in job matches and a 53% increase in candidate search efficiency. Prexel, a clinical drug research company, has cut the lead time for clinical trials from 10-12 weeks to 3-6 weeks with Pleater. It has greatly accelerated the rollout of new therapies. Ever since AT&T teamed up with Pleater, the transformation has been huge. They slashed unnecessary deployments by 40% straight away. The partnership's results speak for themselves. Finding the right partner really can deliver unexpected breakthroughs. Wendy's, a fast food firm, uses Pleater to solve the problem of inventory shortages and distribution between stores in 5 minutes, up from 15 people working all day. In all these cases, businesses have greatly boosted their operational efficiency with Pleater's services. It's simple. Pleater helps them work better and faster. No fancy stuff, just real results that make a difference to how they do business. So, how did Pleater do it? That brings us to its core technology, a methodology called ontology. It's called ontology in English. If you want to invest in the Pleater ontology, you have to understand that the business model, the moat, and the future growth potential are all under this concept. What is an ontology? Simply put, It is a methodology for translating all the activities and events of a business into data. But how? Everything that happens in the real world can be abstracted into a combination of three basic elements: entities, events, and documents. Let's take an example. A person did a thing, leaving some traces and effects, such as Jiang San to the office to wipe the floor. The office will not need to wipe the next 3 days. A person, such as Jiang San, is called a corpse. Did a thing, such as wiping, is called the event. The traces and effects left, such as 3 days without wiping, is called the document. Everything that happens in the real world inside a company can be abstracted into a logical combination of these three elements, which can then be combined to form a standard language that computers can understand. Once you've translated all that behavior into the language, you can build mathematical models for simulations and data analysis. The pattern is similar to one of the space industry's favorite technology, digital twins. How do scientists know what happens when a rocket is launched? Rocket launch has many variables. Each variable will affect the trajectory of the rocket launch. Scientists surely can't keep running the same experiment over and over again to get a conclusion. So what should they do? His requires a digital twin who builds a highly realistic virtual model in a computer that recreates all the rocket's parameters and their interactions. The simulation then predicts the trajectory in the real world. This allows scientists to predict complex situations in advance without having to launch rockets. PLTR does something very similar. IT simulates the same digital enterprise in its own system through ontology. With this digital enterprise, PLTR will be able to simulate and test the performance of the enterprise in various situations, see if there is room for improvement, and find some optimal decisions. In order to improve the operational efficiency of the enterprise, what is unique about PLTR is not only the application of this ontology, but also its own data analysis process, which is the only one in the world that PLTR can do and is the basis of its moat. Below is my summary of the PLTR system flow, where each module is responsible for a part of the data tasks, each of which is unique to PLTR technology. Today, Maida June here is not going to start talking about technical details. This part of the relatively hardcore, but also really quite arrogant. I am in the My to Pro detailed introduction. Interested viewers can be a step to view. We're going to talk a little bit about what they do, so we can understand them. Now, the real mode of the company. The first part is the pipeline builder, which cleans and processes data. PLTR will input all the information inside the customer into the platform and convert it into usable data. This data is then fed into a platform called Square Cone. Square Cone will be in accordance with the ontology method of processing these data and give the final analysis results and solutions. What's the biggest highlight of Square Cone? It's the fact that it can break through barriers and connect all the data scattered across different systems within an enterprise. Just imagine those fragmented bits of data are all linked together thanks to Square Cone. Pretty awesome, right? No more worrying about data being stuck in silos and going to waste. Square Cone takes care of it for you. Manage and schedule with unified logic. And finally, make the optimal decision at the company level. The decisions from Fourier are then sent to the Apollo platform. IIT is responsible for ensuring the decisions are properly carried out. The challenge here is to ensure that Fourier's scheme works simultaneously on different devices and in different locations. If I had introduced you to Palantir PLTR 2 or 3 years ago, that probably would have been the end of the story. In fact, just the technology of the previous modules, the entire platform of PLTR is already very powerful. It can completely open up the data of various systems within the enterprise, create a pretty automated workflow. This is seriously one of a kind in the industry. However, This seemingly powerful platform has always had a particularly big problem, which is over-reliance on human experts, like phalanx. Can be very difficult to find because you have to understand not only the business, but also the data and modeling. Most companies have to set up pleader groups to apply this model. Fang Rui doesn't make decisions completely on their own. He is more like a consultant. You need to have experts to ask reasonable questions, finding the path to a decision through code, and then making the final decision through human review, is also efficient, but difficult, and highly expert-dependent. This still makes it difficult to scale Plater's product. But in just 2 or 3 years, all of this underwent a dramatic transformation. Because the AIP platform has emerged, which is the company's stock price in the past 2 years the key to take off. The emergence of AIP is to Pleater. The system is equipped with an AI brain. It targeted to solve the 2 major problems we mentioned above. The first is the use of the threshold has been greatly reduced. PLTR is no longer a system that must be used by specialists with complex skills. The rank and file can also address PAR directly, just as they can with Chegg PPT. Question from our airline executives, for example, can simply ask, "Why are there so many delays this week?" AIP automatically fetches data from each system, analyzes causes, generates graphs, identifies key factors, and makes final recommendations for improvement. Second, and most importantly, AIP is truly automated. AIP with the help of real-time data and historical experience provided by the square matrix. They can make more accurate predictions and analyses, and make decisions directly. Once a decision has been made, it can be immediately transmitted back to Apollo for execution, because the whole process does not need the intervention of human experts. It not only greatly improves the work efficiency, but also the analysis and decision-making effect of AI is better. As you can imagine, with the AIP platform, companies can reach a wide range of enterprises at once, which is why the last 2 years the company's performance has been a key reason for explosive growth. Presumably, the whole process seems a bit abstract. Let's use a real case to see how the system works. If I'm an airline and there's a delay, how does each module of Pleater do its job? First of all, the system will be through the pipeline builder to collect flights, aircraft, passengers, and other data to the Fourier to build a preliminary model. After the model was initially built, the Fang crash detected a delay, possibly caused by an anomaly in the plane's fuel pressure system. At this point, AIP would begin automated analysis. He would retrieve maintenance records and flight history from the Fang crash to determine if there was a safety hazard. If the analysis results reveal a security risk, AIP will automatically recommend that the aircraft be scheduled for maintenance and that it be temporarily rerouted to a non-stop flight. This information is then passed on to Apollo. Once Apollo receives the command, the entire process is automatically pushed to the airport's on-site systems. It's that simple and straightforward, effortlessly enabling both information delivery and process execution, so that frontline staff immediately implement. After the execution is completed, the entire maintenance record and feedback from the execution are written back into the system. Finally, the system refines its model based on the new data from the event, so that the next time he encountered a similar situation, he could handle it more quickly and accurately. In this way, the Platel system forms a complete decision loop, from data acquisition to information understanding, decision-making, operation execution to continuous learning. This complete process, each link is based on the ontology method of construction, and the process is universal, can be applied to different industries. The end result is faster problem detection, smarter decision-making, and more efficient execution. Now we have a complete understanding of Pleater technology. Now we can answer the question at the beginning of the video, if data analysis has proved to be a good AI application scenario. So why don't tech companies like Google and Microsoft, which also have analytics capabilities, compete with PLTR? Can PLTR's technical barriers remain so unassailable? The previous post on technology sharing answers that question well. Apparently, PLTR technology is not standard software that can be bought and used, but a complex customized system. When it comes to implementation, PLTR sends a team of engineers on site to work directly alongside the client. The engineers will understand the enterprise's data, processes, and requirements, then tailor-made a proprietary system, because every client's needs are different. It's going to be slow and complicated, and big technologies like Google and Microsoft, what they usually do is actually the kind of software that can be copied on a large scale, such as Office, search engines, cloud platforms, etc. These are like standardized products to sell to millions of people. You don't have to build it for each customer. Honestly, standardized products are way better than customized ones. Because standardized products can be promoted faster, the market is relatively large, and the profit may be higher. But when it comes to a heavily service-oriented, highly customized model like PLTR's, both troublesome and difficult to make money. Moreover, also easily involves the compliance security. The question, for big companies, this doesn't make business sense. They really don't like it. What if a big company really wants to invest in this business? Would that hurt PLTR? I don't think so. First of all, PLTR's ontology is the product of 20 years of hard work. It's not a picture. Second, Apollo's execution isn't just any enterprise. PLTR was forged in the demanding environment of the military. But the normal business environment doesn't produce the kind of stability and reliability that money can buy. Finally, in AI applications, we now see AIP seems to be a natural thing. But in the general company is really not necessarily able to do out. The reason why AI works so well on PLTR is that other models of PLTR get through the data of various business aspects early on. And these are private, specialized, and customer-built data that has been accumulated over the course of more than 10 years. And data processing and analysis are AI's forte, which makes PLTR works especially well with AI. Any one of these 3 points to get to the market is a rare existence. 3 points together is unparalleled. So PLTR's moat is not just the technology itself, of course. Technology is its most important moat. But if you think about it further, its core moat is actually the depth of understanding of the customer. The business model of customized services and the control of private data, plus technical barriers, it took more than a decade for PLTR to become a moat. Even for Google and Microsoft, I don't think we'll see a breakthrough anytime soon. In addition to what we said earlier, PLTR's customization model is not something that big technology is willing to do. All of these together explain why PLTR does not see the real competition. And I don't think we'll see it for a long time. After the competition, let's move on to the other issue mentioned earlier. If PLTR's product is so good, why is it only growing at 30% to 40%? And why aren't there more customers? On the one hand, this must be related to the sales model of PLTR. After all, as a customized product, which naturally determines its rate of expansion, limited, what many people don't know, at least for now, is that there is a clear ceiling on the type of customers he can serve. A lot of people might think that what PLTR is doing is using AI to reduce costs and improve efficiency, which sounds like it could be applied to any company in the world. But once you understand how PLTR uses AI to reduce costs and improve efficiency, you'll find that PLTR AI isn't suitable for every business. Why is that? Well, let's roughly divide global companies into four categories. First, the big tech giants. Small tech companies, large traditional companies, and small traditional companies. Let's take a look at how they fit with Pleater. Start with the big tech companies, like Microsoft and Google, which in theory have the most money and the most incentive to use AI to cut costs and improve efficiency. Take a look at Pleater's client list. You'll notice there aren't many big tech companies. And even when there are, it's usually just one or two departments within those firms. Big tech companies almost never use Pleater. Why? This is because the big tech companies have great data engineering teams. They have great AI capabilities, like Microsoft and Google. And they even have the cloud and big models to help them. Such companies have already built their own databases, AI tools, and business processes, so they don't need to use the full suite of services that Pleater provides. At the same time, Pleater systems also need access to all the core data within the enterprise in order to be able to analyze and optimize their operational efficiency. For companies like Microsoft and Google, it's nearly impossible for an outside company to access all of their data. That's why they'd rather do it themselves than turn to Pleater, which are often very tech-savvy and would presumably be willing to use AI to reduce costs and improve efficiency, but have relatively limited resources and not much data. The business isn't that complicated. A Pleater can require a team of engineers to stay for months at a time, combing through data, building models, and integrating processes. It's too heavy, too expensive, and too complicated for these small and medium-sized tech companies. In addition, many small and medium-sized technology companies' business iteration speed is extremely fast, may change the direction of the company tomorrow. Naturally also can't with Pleater this need long-term deep cooperation mode. So it's hard for tech companies, big or small, to be typical customers of Pleater. But if tech companies can't do it, what about traditional industries? Let's start with the large traditional companies. For these companies, they have the budget to use Pleater and the need to reduce costs and improve efficiency, but it is not easy for them to actually adopt it. First of all, sunk costs are too high. Large companies have invested heavily in their data systems over the past decade, and the cost of replacing them is extremely high. Then there are the data migration and privacy compliance challenges, which are also endemic to large companies. For example, airlines, the flight data they involve is very sensitive, and they must meet the certification requirements of the regulatory authorities. Quite often, companies will only hand over their data to an external platform like Pleater after it has been desensitized, which further increases the difficulty and cost of using Pleater. Finally, some of the biggest players in traditional industries, companies like Costco and Walmart, already have their own operating systems in place and they're quite mature. Their supply chains and back-office systems are efficient, reliable, and cheap. So there is no need for Pleater. The good news is that this part isn't completely out of the question. Big companies don't want to give all of their business to Pleater. But some will try one or two departments as pilots. Once successful, these users tend to expand their collaboration over time. In 2024, the average revenue of Pleater's top 20 customers shot up to $64.6 million, an 18% jump from the year before. This shows that the customer is not a one-time order to end, but the more in-depth use, the order will be rolling larger and larger. Finally, there are the traditional small and medium-sized enterprises (SMEs). These are, in fact, Palantir's Pleater core users, and the companies most eager to adopt its technology. For one thing, these companies often don't have good data systems, tech talent is scarce, and they may not even have tried to use AI to improve their operations. For such companies, because their foundation is weak, the room for improvement is also large. As long as they are willing to try PLTR, T is easy to appear immediately effective. On the other hand, many of these traditional companies are asset-heavy, like the gas station chains in the recent IP mines, or companies like hospitals, manufacturing, and energy. When it comes to heavy assets, often means that the cost of operation is very high, especially the high cost of labor. Through AI to improve the efficiency of operation will be very large space. So the vast majority of Apecon's current users are small and medium-sized traditional companies. The problem is, there aren't as many of these businesses as you might think. You need to be asset-heavy, complex, and have enough money to afford PLTR, which has a multi-million-dollar system. And that explains why PLTR's customer base hasn't seen explosive growth. The ones truly suited for it are a group of clients with real, pressing needs, but the entry barrier is pretty high. That's just how it is. With such a barrier in place, the number of customers can't just skyrocket overnight. So what does all this ultimately mean for our investors? On one hand, it implies there's a growth ceiling. Contrary to what many people assume, it doesn't mean every company will turn into a PLTR customer. It has to go beyond its current customer limitations. Once the ceiling is breached, the company has the potential to explode further, and the key question is how PLTR can break through its current customer limitations. In my opinion, there are two very critical points. The first is to expand their technological capabilities, to evolve from a cost-effective approach to a new revenue engine for customers, which will attract those with the financial resources. But the need for efficiency is not that high. The financial sector, for example, is typically a high-paying, data-intensive area that, if successfully entered, will not only bring new revenue growth to the company, it could also significantly increase PLTR's customer base and its influence in the industry. In addition, this change will enable these existing customers to continue to expand cooperation. The second is through technological progress. In further lowering the barriers to use and reducing the complexity of product deployment, for example by introducing lighter or even standardized products, While lowering the barriers to use, it can also provide services that are relatively inexpensive and affordable for small and medium-sized businesses. If this can be done, it will certainly further expand their user base to bring about a rise in valuation. Once we start to see these two things, I think the next big thing is just around the corner. But how do we know that PLTR is on track? To be honest, it is still difficult for retail investors. After all, we do not have the opportunity to use PLTR's service. However, I think there are two ways to do this. The first is to look at the contract growth of existing customers. We can see this directly from the financial statements. If the same customers are constantly increasing the contract value, the probability is that the company is expanding its service offerings. Another option is to go to the semi-annual Apecon conference, which I think is the best way to do this. Here are some cutting-edge examples. We can look at these cases to see if there are some less typical types of customers, such as small and medium-sized technology companies, or those financial companies. This will be a good first-hand account of whether PLTR's services have moved from improving efficiency to driving growth. Others may watch the AIP rally just for laughs. But once you understand today's analysis, you'll have a good grasp of what the rally is all about for stock prices. Even without expanding into new industries or acquiring new clients, simply digging deeper into the value of existing customers can yield plenty of returns. We've got to slice this customer pie more finely, fully unlock their potential, and take the business to the next level. PLTR in the next 3 to 5 years to maintain a growth rate of 30%, I think it is not a big problem. At this point, The company is eating its lunch, and given its unique moat, I think there's a lot of room for growth, and it will continue to accelerate. This stage, the market is giving a certain premium, which I think is reasonable, but the ceiling of the company will be seen after all. And if in another year or two its technology platform doesn't improve, customer structure still hasn't expanded substantially. So it's time to re-examine its long-term growth. After all, valuations reflect not just the growth curve over the next year or two, but the imagination over the next decade. The ceiling of technology companies is often not slowing growth per se, but technology stagnation and the boundaries of application scenarios are confirmed. All in all, if PLTR maintains its current course, the key point is that it still has 3 to 5 years of growth potential to tap into. But the ceiling is clear, growth will peak sooner or later, and the stock is doomed, but until the bounds are verified, the stock will continue to grow at a decent rate. And the high valuation can be maintained. In this case, PLTR isn't really a good long-term investment. It's just a phase play. You need to get out in time for the margin test. But if PLTR's technology can continue to evolve, and the company can break through its ceiling and become the next tech giant, then its growth is sustainable, with plenty of upside potential. It will also have a longer time horizon, making it a truly long-term investment. I personally still have high expectations for this, how to achieve in several key nodes. This video has clearly analyzed with you. Now you have a clear understanding of the companies online and offline, and with a clear judgment standard. I believe we all for PLTR this company's investment will be more comfortable. Alright, this is the end of PLTR's introduction. If you're interested in my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'm Cowboy, make sure to tune in next time.